for joining us. I'm your hostess, Kayla Byers, and this is Champions of Discourse presents Debate This. This season, we will see two debaters go head-to-head in an impromptu battle of wits and passion. Each week, we will have a new judge to adjudicate the round, and by the end of the season, we will crown the winner. If you'd like to hear a bit more information about how debate works, check out our previous intro video. The link is in the description box. With each round, we hope to equip you with the tools necessary to be a critical thinker. This round, in addition to our distinguished debaters, Leah Johnson and Jeanelle Hope, the judge will be Dominique Creer, who was born and raised in the Bay Area. She joined the speech and debate team while she was in high school. The skills really helped excel in her education and bringing in different perspectives and her experiences. She is currently working as an education specialist in a middle school. Let's go ahead and get this round started. Hey everybody, how you doing?
Good morning. Hello.
Hello.
So, all right everyone, so this is our resolution. Everything is correct? Is written out correctly?
Yes.
Okay, so we have 15 minutes to prep. Again, Jeanelle is going to be government and I am going to be opposition. Dominique, let us know when the time starts.
The time starts now. All right. We're going to get started, and the Gov is going to go 6 minutes, and you can get started now.
Good afternoon or good morning, everyone. I first like to thank my opponent for being here this morning, as well as the judge, who's also serving as our timekeeper. We're going to get right into this. We have been given a case, a topic. Married couples should share phone passwords. We're going to start with a little bit of resolutional analysis and provide a little bit of framework for today's round by first defining and giving some criteria. We're going to define married as couples, two people who have entered into a lawful agreement to be partnered, married in particular, with another until death do them part, and that this is a union that is recognized by the government, right? We're going to define should is typically just should. Someone who's willing or voluntarily will provide said information. We're going to define phone as electronic communication devices, including smartphones, iPads, and laptops. And this include, and when we define passwords, we're going to define passwords as codes used to lock phones and or the aforementioned devices. And when I say phones, I also include sort of personal phones and what we kind of colloquially call our burner phone or our side phones or whatever. And passwords also include social media and email passwords, given their currency in today's society. The value that we're going to be using for this case is going to be quality of life. And our criteria is going to be qualitative criteria. We're going to run it as a security, net benefits, and basic needs. And so with that, with that all aside, I'd like to jump into our main 2 points today. And the first I want to start with is what I'm going to call the 3 T's, right? Sharing your phone passwords builds trust, transparency, and togetherness. And so let's start with the first T, right? Trust. Trust means that we're going to reduce the outside external interferences that may come into one's relationship, into one's marriage, right? We want to make sure a marriage is firm and has a solid foundation and is not shaken or wavered by any external forces that may come through your electronic devices, right? So with this, that means that you're not going to have any fears of infidelities because you're going to be openly communicating and sharing this and volunteering this information to folks. So no fears of infidelities or folks being on Tinder or any of these apps potentially cheating on you because you're going to know before it even comes to your door, right? And so with this trust, you also are going to have a reduction of stress, right? Because you're not going to have to worry about the cheating and is they creeping and all these different things. It's going to really overall foster an open relationship. And that gets me to my second T, transparency, right? Fosters open communication. Thank you. And it creates this amicable, peaceful environment where, again, people don't have these worries, they don't have these concerns, because everything is laid open into the bare, right? It reduces and creates this stress-free or less stressful environment. We already know that marriage is stressful. We know that in the United States, we have a very high divorce rate. And so anything that we can do to reduce the stress rate is necessary. It also fosters togetherness, right? It helps equalize relationships, right? Especially if we think about some of the power differentials that may emerge via gender, via economic background, who makes more money and whatnot. And so having this additional transparency of what's going on may help equalize things, right? Social media in particular can be the devil. And it has aided in the destruction of many marriages. And so having this transparency, and that you all both can go and peruse your feeds together and be lustful and look at Instagram models, it also creates this sense of togetherness, and that you all can partake in the ratchetness together, right? We can learn from each other's personal interests as well. I like this type of Tinder, and you like this type of Tinder. We can look at the girls and the boos and the boys together, and that's a part of our relationship, right? It's togetherness. It also models a healthy relationship for children as well, and that you have folks who are able to communicate openly with each other. This argument is pure net benefit. My second argument is security. Nowadays, passwords are so integral to society that in some cases, they're almost as important as your social security number. So your partner should know many of your passwords, because just in case you die, you go missing, you get sick, your children are ill, you need to be able to pay the bills, right? Having your partner not knowing this type of information and leaving them on the outside can cause much harm in an instance of an emergency or a major situation. And so for that reason, I also argue that this is a security issue, meaning that it's also a basic needs issue as well. And so these passwords are very important. They aren't just, me locking my phone. Phones are integral to society today. And if anything were to happen, you would want that information. And so for those reasons, I ask that the judge vote in favor of the government.
Thank you. All right, your time starts in 7 minutes.
Thank you to our adjudicator. Thank you so much to the government. I'm just going to jump right into case at the top for the resolution analysis. I agree with the definitions. I accept the value. However, the criteria that we're going to be upholding is net benefits. We're not going to use all three. We're just going to use net benefits because it makes more sense in weighing the quality of life on one criteria as opposed to try to balance them on all three. The first argument, the 3 T's: trust, transparency, and togetherness. Let's be real. If a person has broken trust, it's going to always be broken, and that's going to lead to unhealthy relationships. Sharing passwords is not a very does not help in building trust, and it doesn't create a healthy environment. If you think about when you were younger and your parents would bust into your room hoping to catch you doing something, that wasn't trust that was built between you and your parents. You just knew not to look guilty anytime they would come in. And increased distrust and increased secrecy and the probability of a breakup. If you are doing anything, like think of Tasha Mack, Lord have mercy. Think of Tasha from Why Did I Get Married? She was marking Marcus's clock like every second, every day. How much gas is going to take him to get to work and all that kind of stuff. That increases stress, which negates our argument of building trust and decreasing stress in her point 1. Also, boundaries are effectively healthy in every relationship. And if you do not have boundaries, there is not going to be a decrease of stress. In fact, the opposite is going to happen. Having structure and boundaries in a relationship is healthy. Sharing passwords decreases autonomy, and it makes for people who are dependent on the validation of others. It increases insecurity. It increases the trust issues. It decreases the amount of space we have. We all know that absence makes the heart grow fonder. and increases the smothering in unhealthy relationships. Having boundaries ensures that trust is built over time, as opposed to always being in someone else's social media, being in someone else's phone, being in someone else's, like, I'm enough by myself to handle by myself. I don't need to make sure that my husband is good, or that he has like his phone situations, tablets, laptops, social media. I don't need to be in all of his stuff, because which is my next point, whatever you're looking for, you will find. So if you're looking at, they're looking at pornography on their phones, or they're looking for help with other women, that is going to drive them to it. Because if you are accusing them of it, it is going to lead them to think that maybe I should start doing it, which negates point number 2, that the government made of increasing security in relationships and basic needs. You can have, in any household, you can have access to paying the water bill, paying the electricity bill, paying the mortgage, things like that. You don't need access to another person's phone in order to pay those things. A social media account, if you die, your social media accounts they're not going anywhere. You can easily tag that person in it, or whatever the case may be. That is not a basic need. Having access to their social media information, and because you are married, you are able to access anything that you have in your joint name. So if you're taking care of bank account statements, if you're taking care of bills, if you're taking care of life insurance and things of that nature, and you have paperwork, they will help you. You do not need access to their phones in order to achieve that. In short, married couples should not share phone passwords, because it will increase the amount of stress. It will increase the likelihood of them breaking up, and it will increase unhealthy relationships. And even for the impact of the kids seeing it, the government said that it'll increase the likelihood of the kids having model relationships. No, this will increase the unhealthy relationships, because there's always going to be a question: what if she is doing XYZ? And if you have those questions in your relationship, the trust is already gone and is not going to be rebuilt through sharing or through sharing the phone passwords and having access to social media. And with that, I ask for an opposition vote.
Thank you. The next is 4 minutes. I think you're on mute.
Okay, y'all. You recording me now? Okay. All right. The opposition has presented some attempted to present some facts to refute the case here. First, really her trying to tease through my T's, my 3 T's, which I believe is a solid case here. She's saying sharing does not help. She gives some examples that we should look at people's relationships with parents, as well as in a very extreme, I would say, angry character from a Tyler Perry movie over a decade ago. And I want to say this. The opposition still did not go through many of the net benefits that I argued here. And I know they disagreed with some of my criteria values, but a lot of what I mentioned with regards to transparency, fostering open communications, that really wasn't teased through. And so the examples that she gave of Tasha and her husband in Tyler Perry's movie, who did not voluntarily agree to share passwords. Tasha still stole this information. So there was no fostering of open communication here. So again, this example just does not work. Also, we cannot compare apples to oranges. The relationship that you had in your pubescence, your adolescent, with your parents who had power over you versus the relationship that you enter into with a marriage is different. It requires a different set of actions, right? And so to argue that trust cannot be repaired, I have to completely reject that argument. I think trust can be repaired. we see over and over and over again in society. I just watched Jada and Will Red Table Talk last night. I think about Lemonade, Jay-Z and Beyonce. I think about all these high profile people. I think about folks even within my own family, within our own family, that have gone through infidelities and still have made it and been married 20, 30 years with each other. It's about how you repair trust. Every time we hear therapeutic folks, they talk about what can we do to repair trust, right? And oftentimes it's having these open communication lines. If we think about the Dr. Ayan Levon Zant and some of the other folks here. So absolutely, trust can be repaired. And I think this open communication that's fostered by the 3 T's in part does that. Boundaries are not needed. I agree that there are some boundaries that should be put in place, right? Personal space boundaries and whatnot. But when it comes to sharing of passwords with regards to social media, there should be an open line of communication, right? And moreover, I never said that people would be, scrolling through these things all day, every day, and that folks wouldn't have personal time with their personal devices, right? I think the opposition has taken a very extreme interpretation of what I said. It said that this would be voluntarily done, right? Not that folks would just be like Tasha, sitting and looking and waiting and plotting for you to do wrong, right? Moreover, I think there was another discussion of, if you are always looking for something, you're going to find dirty something. But perhaps if you had that openness and that voluntary communication and sharing, maybe that might hold the person to a higher standard, to where they wouldn't go off and doing this drifty and shifty behavior, because they would be held to that higher standard. And finally, around security, anytime I want to set up an account, they want to know my Facebook information. They want to attach my Spectrum bill to Facebook. They want to attach this to Google. So yes, there are some bills that are paid through social media passwords and codes today, because Facebook is a monopoly. We know this. Google is a monopoly. We know this. We can critique Mark Zuckerberg at the same time today. And so I want to get through really quick my voter issues, why I won, because I'm maintaining my 3 values here. This is a security issue. This is a net benefit for the entire relationship, the marriage. We're trying to go 30, 40, 50 years of Black, whatever kind of love you have. They lost because they did not get through my 3 T's and fully refute it. And I yield my time, or what time I don't have.
Thank you. We have 6 minutes.
All right. So we're just going to, because we're all on case anyway. So we're just going to go through the last speech and my first speech. So her first point was that in fostering communication, fostering open communication in relationships, Tasha was not voluntarily, or Marcus was not voluntarily sharing with Tasha. There are situations where it's like, if we make the statement that they should, there could be, in whether it's voluntary or involuntary, it should not happen. Sharing phone passwords, it should not happen. And yes, Tasha and Marcus may be a little bit of an extreme, but there are situations of questions. We always have those nagging questions in the back of our mind. Well, if I have access to it, I probably could go look at it. I probably could go see it. The parent relationship argument versus the married relationship argument. Everyone who has been to therapy will know the way that their parents treated them is how they act in relationships. So there is a direct correlation with how you are treated in your prepubescence and how you are treated in, or how you act in, as a married person. So this argument is a moot point, because if you don't have that trust from your parents, you don't expect it from your partner, which negates her last point. Then I'll go back up, which negates her last point of maybe holding a person to a higher standard. Holding them to a higher standard would allow them to have their space in having their own communication and having their own phone, laptop, computer, whatever the case may be. Social media, they don't have to share passwords. If you want to hold a person to a higher standard, show them that you trust them. Showing them that you trust them is not saying give me, or let's voluntarily share, because if they say no, you may think there may be something to hide. going back up to the top, trust can be repaired. In some instances, trust can be repaired. But just like she stated, Will and Jada, Will, if y'all saw the last 2 minutes, Will is still very hurt. That man cried in the car after that. Okay, he cried in his car. And if we look at Jay-Z and Beyonce, these are all like our top people. There are people where they can say we stayed together, but that does not mean that the trust was repaired. It just means that they have more reasons to stay together than they had to break up. And I already answered the open line of communication. So we're just gonna get through voter issues really quickly. Firstly, you're voting opposition because its net benefits to show that it is more important that everyone do not share the married couples do not share their passwords, to increase autonomy, to increase boundaries, to increase the likelihood of them having a healthy relationship. It decreases stress in their relationships when they do not share passwords. Secondly, you're voting against the government because they didn't really impact out or show why it's important to have these passwords. Saying that you use Facebook through Spectrum, there's always the option to add social media to whatever accounts you have. However, that is not a basic necessity or a basic need. Your basic needs, if you look at the Maslow hierarchy of needs, is air, water, food. After that, and then you can go to security. But security is more about security in the person. It's not security as in, oh, I need to make sure my ADT is working. That's not what that is. Thirdly, the third reason that you're voting is because it has not been negated that having boundaries in the relationship, she agreed that it was healthy. And so having boundaries and creating the access for that person to be held to a higher standard, in her words, be held to a higher standard, having boundaries is going to create that trust. So for these reasons, you're going to vote opposition.
Three minutes on the clock for you.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, opposition. We're going to get straight into the voter issues here and really hammer this in. And I think we really want to start with some of the resolutional analysis, right? And the word should, right? And the word share, meaning voluntarily, meaning that this is something that a couple agreed to do amicably because they thought that this would be best for their relationship. They agreed mutually to share this information. And so with that, let's get back to my 3 T's. When folks come together, they get married, whether that be extravagant marriage ceremony or going down to the justice of the peace, those 2 people agree to enter into a relationship together, a marriage, where they agree to trust, commit to openness, and to work to foster love and longevity, right? And so with that relationship needs my 3 T's. The trust, the transparency, and the togetherness in order to maintain that longevity. Why wouldn't you want to voluntarily give this information if it meant that you would have open lines of communication, which are absolutely necessary for good, to foster a good relationship? I think my opposition also keeps, hammering in this example of, parental and the comparisons between a parental and a marital relationship. Absolutely. One critique we can make of our parents is that they didn't always have open lines of communication. They fought unhealthily. They held grudges. They didn't talk to each other. So what kind of marriage would you then model if you saw that open lines of communication with your own mother and father? Right. So I want to go back to the opposition's own point and say, well, what did it look like if your mama and your daddy actually did share that type of information with each other? Would you then model that behavior, and would that then become the norm within your own relationship? Right. It also decreases stress. The opposition is trying to use decrease of stress on their end. But if if you don't have any concern about infidelities, one would think that would immediately be a decrease of stress. Right. And with regards to security, Absolutely, it's about sharing passwords so you know different passwords for all your different sites, just in case your spouse might die or whatever it might be. But it also is about securing the marriage, right? And you secure your marriage via these open lines of communication, right? And so, as far as my voter issues go, again, I'm winning this case really on the basis of what a marriage should be about, and it should be about these three T's: trust, togetherness, and transparency. Why they lost, they really haven't said how you would decrease stress by not sharing, right? It's, oh, boundaries, oh, this. But what about open communication, right? If you're hiding things, or there's the perception that you may be hiding things, that is not a healthy relationship. That does not foster transparency or trust. So again, I argue that am I time? Thank you. Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. All right, so 2 minutes that you have to vote, and then give us your reason for decision.
While the judge is reviewing the cases presented, you should take this opportunity to share, like, and subscribe. You know, all the YouTube things. Who do you think won this round? Let me know in the comments down below. And the results are in.
All right. I appreciate the time that you have given, and meeting with me today, and going over the topic of married couples should share phone passwords. At this moment, I will be voting for the government, or the reason being is because a lot of their foundation for the three T's really solidified. And through some of the examples given through social media, such as bills, I think there was a point kind of lost in the opposition about social media being such a big part of society today. But I love both arguments. They're beautiful, and you guys did a job. Amazing job.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Thank you all for tuning in. This has been an episode of Champions of Discourse Present Debate This. See you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for watching Champions of Discourse Presents Debate This. I have been your hostess, Kayla Byers. Be sure to tune in next Thursday.